My name is Susan Sanders, and I'm a set hostess for the set on Courageous. You might recognize me from one of my roles as a teacher. There was a young man on a desk, and he was totally asleep. His friends had put him up there, and so I'm coming in and I'm scolding these pranksters for doing what they've done in my class. And so you'll see me there. I'm Janie Carter in that movie.
I'll get serious about your humor when you get serious about your studies.
This is my father, precious sweet daddy, best friend, faithful father.
My name is Ray Wood, and I'm in the automobile business, and I was in the movie Facing the Giants and Fireproof. I went to Alex and told Alex I don't know anything about acting. I've never done any acting. I think you got the wrong person. He said, no, I got the right person. And he said, I don't want you to do any acting at all. He said, I want you to just say the words from your heart. Grant, I heard a story about two farmers who desperately needed rain. And both of them prayed for rain, but only one of them went out and prepared his fields to receive it. Which one do you think trusted God to send the rain?
Well, the one who prepared his fields for it.
Which one are you? I am so humbled that he would choose someone such as me, that's a nobody. I was a nobody, that I might reach people for his glory.
My dad had been pretty much an alcoholic his whole life. I remember as a young girl, my mom having to go a lot to bars, we'd drive it at night, up to the bars, and she'd have to go in and tell him something or get him or whatever. And on the weekends, he would go out fishing with his friends. He just wasn't engaged in our lives as children. I remember very clearly, I think I was actually 11, and I remember my father coming in one night. It was very late, and he came in one night and he was very drunk, I could tell. And I was laying in my bed. I could hear he and my mother having a really loud discussion. It was getting heated, it escalated. And I remember hearing my dad say, I cannot do this anymore. I just cannot. And I remember hearing the door slam. And then I was on the front side of the house, so I remember the lights in the window as I saw him drive off that night. And I remember thinking, I thought I was worth it. That very problem that came from me feeling abandoned made me run to God. I mean, just embrace God with everything I had. So the next year, I was saved. I embraced him. My mom and dad did try to get back together several years later. And after probably about a year, my dad and my mom both said, this isn't working. They told me separately, but they both said, this is not working. We can't stay like this. And I just remember thinking, Lord, you have promised if I pray, you promise me you will hear me. And so I'm just praying that somewhere down the line, you'll change this man's heart. Normally, I would have chosen to go with my mom because she was a strong figure in my life. But the Lord said, yeah, you're going to stay with him and you're going to support him because I'm going to do something in him. There was the first promise I'd ever had from reading God's Word. It was my first promise from the Lord that said, your dad's going to be saved. I'm 17. One morning I set out and I just started driving, and I saw a church that had a lot of cars in it. It was McGregor Baptist Church, and I drove into the driveway parking lot and went in, and it was the best thing I could have ever done. There was a gracious body of believers that was just willing to carry me for a while by myself. And they prayed, oh my goodness, they prayed for this man's salvation. They took him on as a project, and they would come over, and my daddy would be drunk as all get out, and they'd come over, and we'd watch TV at my house with my drunk daddy sitting in the corner. And, they loved him. They loved him when he wasn't yet reached.
She came home from church one Sunday night and she said, "Daddy, next Sunday is Easter Sunday." She said, "Would you go with me to church this one time?" And she had asked me many times before, and I'd always come up with some excuse for not going. And every night that week, before she went to bed, she came in and she asked me, she says, "Daddy, have you thought about it?" Sunday morning, she's sitting at the breakfast table, dressed and ready to go to church. And she looked across the table and she says, "Daddy, there's not much time left. Have you thought about it?" I said, "Just this one time, I'll go." And they were playing the song, "If none go with me, I still will follow." And God took my life. From the time I was about 3 years old up until that very moment. And it was like a movie and a fast forward. And when it got to the end of the movie, the last part of it, I was sitting in the back of a pickup truck going down through the woods on an old two-rutted road. And there was great big piles of garbage piled up on the sides of the road. Washing machines and refrigerators and drums and garbage. And God says, "This is what your life is. This is what you look like." It broke me. The following day, Susan went and bought me a Irish study Bible. And she started every night. We would sit down and do Bible study every night. Not long after that, we were in church one morning and they started playing some music, and I just handed her the hymnal. And I waded across 14 sets of knees and got to the aisle, and I went down and I told that preacher, I said, "I want Jesus in my heart." And he looked at me and he looked out across the auditorium or the sanctuary and he says, "Folks, if this big old gorilla of a man can humble himself and come and ask for Christ to come into his life, what's stopping you from getting up and coming?" That was the greatest day in my life. I would not trade it for any day that I ever lived.
I think of the little 12-year-old girl that wonders if God hears her prayers. The 13-year-old girl that wonders if really praying for her daddy to really know the Lord, to come to a better relationship with the Lord, or even just to be a daddy, just to be somebody she can look up to. I wonder, what could that do? What could this movie do for her? And what could it do for her daddy? Go into that. What if somebody invites a father to that movie, and he walks out of that movie and says, "I'm going back to that 12-year-old girl I've got. I want to be different. I want to be a new dad."